Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be discussing a few of the blacksmithing books that I own, the ones that I found useful when I was starting out and the ones that I still use as reference today. The Village Blacksmith by Aldrin A. Watson, I believe, is the first blacksmithing book that I ever purchased. It doesn't have a lot of practical information. It's not a how-to book, but the way it's illustrated and just the whole concept of the book is probably the main reason that I'm doing what I'm doing today. The other book that was written at the time by Aldrin A. Watson is Country Furniture. This isn't a blacksmithing book, but this book combined with The Village Blacksmith kind of locked in a picture of what a traditional craftsman was, and I've been chasing that my whole life. The Complete Modern Blacksmith is a modern reprinting of the three books written by Alexander G. Weigers, or Weegers. I honestly don't know how to pronounce his name. But this book introduced me to the whole idea of recycling scrap steel into tools. It's an excellent book that deals with heat treating and a lot of tool making. There's some pretty weird 60s designs in here, but there's a lot of solid information, and a lot of what I use today came from this book. The other book that became available shortly after I started blacksmithing was The Art of the Blacksmith by Alex W. Beeler. It's still in print today. It's been reprinted I don't know how many times, and I have no idea why. It has a lot of good information in it, but there's also a lot of anecdotal information in it. So if you're new to blacksmithing and looking for a reference book, I would stay away from this one just because you need to have a bit of experience to understand what is this good, solid information and what is, kind of hearsay and just gonna mess you up. The main reason I don't have a lot of basic blacksmithing books is because I was very fortunate early on to find this series of books. This is a series of three books put out by COSIRA, which stands for the Council on Small Industries in Rural Areas. It was printed in England in around the 40s. I don't believe they're in print anymore, but there are copies available if you go to rare book sites. These are very unassuming books, and it's really easy to overlook them because they don't have any of the flash that we are accustomed to seeing in books today. They're just basic information, sparsely illustrated, but everything that you need to know about blacksmithing are in these three books. The two volumes that I have here are the most important ones in my opinion because they deal with all the basic blacksmithing techniques. The third volume deals specifically with gates and railings and the techniques that are involved with that. I don't have a copy of that one yet. I brought it in through interlibrary loans and, of course studied it, but that one I'm still looking for. Another book that's really popular and extremely available because it's still in print is Practical Blacksmithing by M.T. Richardson. This is similar to The Art of the Blacksmith by Beeler. It has a lot of great information in it, but there's also a lot of garbage. So you have to be careful when you're looking through this book. Not everything in there works. This book is a compilation of articles that were written by individual blacksmiths and sent into the blacksmithing publication at that time. This is in the early 20s. So there was no governing body to make sure that everything that was written up was actually factual. So as I say, some of it's good information, some of it you have to be careful about. Basically, this is a prehistoric version of YouTube. Edge of the Anvil by Jack Andrews is a good reference book. He has a lot of technical information in there that's very valuable, and up until the time that I had all this stuff loaded into a spreadsheet, I think I referred to this book practically every day. You can see how I've written the weight of a cubic inch of steel on the cover. I was looking that up so often. As a how-to book, it leaves a little bit to be desired. It really isn't that descriptive, and it's certainly not a book that'll take you by the hand and guide you through the whole process. The most valuable part of this book to me was that it introduced me to the work of Samuel Yellin. I had seen decorative ironwork, but it was just pretty much basic scrolls and twists in pretty standard railings. I had no idea that decorative ironwork could be taken to such a level. Decorative Antique Ironwork by Henry René Dalmain is purely a reference book. It is a catalog of decorative ironwork that's found in a museum in France. This isn't a how-to book, it's just picture after picture after picture of decorative ironwork. Some of it's fairly clear, some of it isn't, but it just gives you examples of a lot of different work. It's a Dover publication, so it's still available, and it's just a great source of ideas and inspiration, and this is one of the books that I leaf through a lot. Practical Projects for the Blacksmith by Ted Tucker is a fairly well written and illustrated book that does a pretty good job of illustrating the process. It does gloss over a few points that I think were important, but overall it is a book that you can follow through. Each chapter is a different project and he guides you through it. The only problem I had with this book was quite often the stock sizes that he described for the project produced a project that was often a third the size of what he was showing you in the picture for the project. So I found that a little confusing when I was starting out and working through these projects, but overall it was, it's still a valuable book that has some good information. The Blacksmiths Craft by Charles McCraven is another book that does a pretty good job of guiding you through the process. The work that he does is a lot of logging and farming equipment, so there's some pretty basic blacksmithing here, but it's all, useful information. Professional Smithing by Donald Streeter covers mainly blacksmithing and locksmithing for historical reproductions. There's a lot of good information in here and the description is accurate, but this book was not intended for the novice smith. All the steps are there, but there is a lot of information that is simply overlooked because it's basic information that you should know before attempting this kind of work. It's a great reference book, but it's not where you want to start out. Early American Wrought Iron by Albert H. Sun is a great reference book of colonial era ironwork. It's fully illustrated. There are no photographs in this book, but they are extremely well done drawings that really give you a good idea of how everything's put together. There's a lot of historical information, of course, as well in this book, but I use it primarily as a reference book for ideas. The Backyard Blacksmith by Lorelei Sims is another book that's probably suffered a little bit because it's not overly flashy. It just has some pretty basic techniques in it. But it's a great place to start out. She does a really good job of explaining everything from setting up a forge to all the basic techniques that you need to know, and it's very well illustrated. So if you're trying to figure out the first book that you should buy, for blacksmithing, I don't see how you can go wrong with this one. The last books that I have for you today are the Skills of a Blacksmith's books by Mark Asbury. This is a series of 3 books. They're a little bit pricey and probably out of the reach of the novice smith, but they do a really great job of explaining all of the fundamentals of blacksmithing as it concerns moving metal. There isn't a lot of fancy stuff in here. It's just good, solid, fundamental techniques. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you're interested in supporting this channel, the simplest way, of course, is to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have questions and you want to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at either one of the addresses that I have listed here. It may take me a couple of days, but I will get back to you. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.